Victor Harris is a longtime Bay Area poet, artist, and cheesecake. It's not, I don't know, baker? Baker? I thought there might be a better word, but we'll go with that. Coming from his mouth. He is the proprietor of Rochelle's Cheesecakes, Rochelle's.com, right? And I had the pleasure of meeting him and mistaking him for someone that he's not at the Blackout Rally in Brooklyn, New York. Yeah, you were there. But you didn't confuse him for Rondell Adams for almost a year, did you? I did that. That's real talk. All right, welcome Victor to the stage. We're glad to have him. You want this one or that? All right.
Good evening.
Hi.
How are you guys doing this evening?
Pretty tired.
Me too. Better now, that is. Well, yeah, a little tired. We're going to get through this together, though. Oh, that's not what I want. All right. And I know this is a skeptics conference, but I have a bit of a confession. I believe that is not going to work. I believe in dragons. Not the metaphorical kind, but the metaphysical kind. The mystical kind that flies through skies and raids villages unless virgins are sacrificed. The magical kind that breathes fire and does battle with wizened wizards wearing pointy hats and holding staffs. See, I believe in dragons because I can see evidence of their descendants scattered around the earth. You call them dinosaurs, but I know the truth. They are dragons who never lived long enough to learn how to fly. But my dragon survived so that he could pass the truth on to me, and I, as his righteous prophet, am here to pass the truth on to you. My dragon is the son of his father. Before there was anything, there was nothing but the father of my dragon. He coughed up a hairball and caught the son of flame. A few millennia later, he had 7 bowel movements to form the planets, but he had plans for the earth. So he was careful in what he ingested to make sure that it was right for life. And now, in order to protect us, he carries us through the universe in his claws, his most precious creation. My dragon will one day poop planets, but for now he evacuates asteroids into the atmosphere. Scientists have been convinced that they come from outer space, but I know the truth, and now so do you. My dragon did damage when he was younger, demanding sacrifices from believers and death to non-believers, but now he is a kinder, gentler deity. He lives in the hills behind my house, and he protects me as his righteous prophet. And I give him thanks and praise when he uses his magic to make things go my way. And I plead for forgiveness when his angry footfalls causes the earth to quake. Science attempts to tell me that he doesn't exist because he has no influence in his environment, that there is no fecal matter congruent with a large lizard living in the immediate vicinity. They try to tell me that the ecology could not support one as large as he, but my dragon defies science. My dragon lives outside the scope of science. See, my dragon is magic. Physicists try to tell me that a dragon large enough to make the earthquake would need to be visible from space, and I reply with magic. They try to tell me that his wings need to be immense in order to lift one so large, and I reply with magic. They try to tell me that fire cannot physically exist in a lizard, that flammable expectorant is not enough for dragon's breath, that there needs to be an ignition system as well, and I reply with magic. Friends and family plead with me to get help. They say that the way I go on about dragons, I must be crazy. And I can see that some of you agree with that assessment. But consider that every inhabited continent has had legend about dragons. Consider that every human culture tells tales about these great beasts. If you would only consider that there have been millions of books written about these winged worms, if your faith in the existence of dragons was only the size of a mustard seed, you would see that the evidence is irrefutable. Well, it was irrefutable until I reached middle school when I had my first science class and learned the scientific method. You postulate a hypothesis, arrange a test to check the validity of your hypothesis, and if it isn't valid, you must come up with a new hypothesis. But if it holds true, you need to submit your findings in an experiment for peer review. Science tells us how the natural world works, and my dragon was admittedly untestable. They had no foundation. Despite the mountains of mythologies, they had no foundation in reality, and my dragon's existence became questionable. When I hit high school and learned about biology, the way the human embryo progresses from single-celled organism to full-fledged human being, my irrefutable evidence got a little shaky because there was no need for me to be descended from Atreyu and the Empress. Then I got to college and learned about potassium-argon dating, the way an object's age can be determined by how much potassium-argon remains in its structure, and did some of my own research. I read the evidence and formula for the Big Bang, and by then my dragon had all but disappeared. Replaced by reason, I am more amazed now by my minuscule place in the universe, my own existence and its improbability. To quote Richard Dawkins, we are all going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they are never going to be born. The potential people who could be here in my place but who will in fact never see the light of day outnumber the sand grains of Arabia. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of our possible people allowed by our DNA so massively exceeds the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds is you and I in our ordinariness that are here. This is the way my belief in dragons dissipated into skepticism as maturity took me. There's a quote I read in a collection of mythologies that has stayed with me through the years. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, thought like a child, and reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. And yet you continuously attempt to convince me that your deities are real. Thank you. So in case you couldn't tell by the tone of that, I'm normally performing in front of a more hostile audience. I used to DJ an open mic that was weekly in Oakland, populated by mostly Black Christians. And so I was one of the few atheists that actually got on the mic and spoke about my atheism. So yeah, the name of that poem was Falcor is My Homeboy. All my skeptical poems have a bit of a 80s reference to them in the name. This next poem is called Oh God, You Devil. Dear God, I want to thank you for this body you've given me, but I do have one or two issues with its layout and capabilities. I mean, if we are, as your adherents would have me believe, your favorite species created in your image, then your imagination must have been exhausted after creating sunrises, sunsets, the ocean, its floor, and the majestic mountains. They are beautiful works of art, after all, but your imagination must have been expended after creating creatures to swim in the deep, birds to decorate the skies, and animals to populate the earth. They are all inspiring in every iteration, so I can only assume that your imagination was taxed when it came to creating my kind. Or perhaps the parts bin was empty because these eyes you've endowed in me and mine are nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're serviceable. But they're nowhere near your best work. Sharks have clear covers to keep their eyes safe when attacking prey. The eyes of the octopus don't have the same blind spot as those of mammals, and the images aren't flipped. Hawks can see greater distances with more clarity, and insects have compound eyes that allow them to see in 6 directions at once. While we, your favorite species, stubs toes in poorly lit rooms. Our rods, struggling in low light situations, leaving us susceptible to injury and predation. We can only see in black and white in our periphery. Our cones can only perceive a limited number of colors in the spectrum, and our necessary nerves and veins occupy the ocular surface, leaving them vulnerable to irritation and damage by the tiniest of your insects. God, this body you've given we suffers from 1 or 2 minor deficiencies. For instance, we communicate, eat, drink, and breathe using the same faculties, which almost makes it a certainty that we will one day choke in our attempt to acquire sustenance. Did you love the dolphin and the whale more than man? Are fishes and amphibians more favored by their creator than the humble mammals from which we've descended? The circulatory and respiratory systems of insects are so simple as to almost be inspired. Did you design them early on in the process? I mean, there are more body plants or insects than there are people on this earth. Did you pin them fresh off your first cup of coffee or whatever your drug of choice may be? Because I think after seeing some of your creatures, it's quite clear that you are on some sort of hallucinogen. And speaking of circulation and respiration, why don't we use all of the oxygen we take in? And why are we land-based animals on a planet that is 2/3 water, where the oceans, once so teeming with life that you could only see heartache and strive for your favorite creations, and so limited them to the land masses? This spine you've hung my mass on contains a curve so complex that I will have back problems at some point in my life. Whereas if we were in the ocean, that might not be. The same can be said for hips, ankles, and knees, and dear God, why can't I regenerate limbs? I'm not asking for an arm or a leg such as the salamander is able to do, but if the common lizard can regrow a tail, I don't think a pinky toe is too demanding of me. And dear God, why is my lifespan so short? Only doubling in the last century thanks to Western medical technology, but still falling far short of the alligator and the crocodile, the tortoise and the parrot. Do these creatures, not purported to be your favorites, have more purpose than man? And what is the purpose of cancer? Why do our cells suddenly go crazy and attempt to kill off the body that contains them? And our appendix, which was once necessary to break down such fibrous materials as grass and hardy green vegetables, is now a repository for necessary bacteria, a ticking time bomb in our abdomen. I'm running out of time, dear God, but not complaints. I do have one or two more for you to address. My party center, centrally located, is in too close proximity, at times sharing the same facilities as my sewage center. Were there no city planners up there in heaven for you to consult? Were we given whatever blighted plans were left laying around? Does that explain the awkward appendages that dangle off of our body? Never mind. Don't answer that last question. I only need to look around at all the different religious denominations that claim to speak your truth to know the real truth. I humbly await your answer, dear God, if you can be bothered. But can you do me one favor? Keep your believers from attempting to speak for you, because they are all offering a different answer, each incompatible with the other, and attempting to disprove 6 billion ideas of you is really beginning to piss me off. So I had a friend that's a believer, spiritual, non-denominational, blah, 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 that asked me, if you could do it again, if you could design your perfect human, what changes would you make giving that poem? So this is part 2. Dear God, I want to thank you for this body you've given me, but I do have 1 or 2 issues with its layout and capabilities, so may I suggest some upgrades for version 2.0? My party center, centrally located, is in too close proximity, at times sharing the same facilities as my sewage center, so may I suggest you move our excrement exits to the soles of our feet. Liquids out the left foot, solids out the right. Still under voluntary muscle control so that I can keep my kicks so fresh and so clean. Give us wings like those of the sugar glider squirrel so that I will be able to see things from a new perspective. On a world so large, we are limited by our pedestrian abilities. Give us eyes with the ability to see infrared so that pareidolia will not be a necessary adaptation by my mind as a means of ensuring survival. I'd like the chameleon's coordination skills so that my skin tone can match my mood and environment. Gills to give us the ability to explore the 2/3 of the world that are currently contained in dihydrogen monoxide. This might also eliminate the more than 17,000 children under the age of 4 that attempt to come stay with you each year by acting on their natural, some might say God-given, curiosity by placing things in their mouths or exploring bodies of water that can be less than an inch deep. Give us a more efficient process for extracting oxygen from the air we breathe, or even a way for us to extract energy from the rays of the sun so that we will no longer need to eat the flesh of your beasts. Give women the ability to determine whether or not they want their eggs inseminated by their current partner. And better birthing canals for the female of the species so that giving birth will not be a danger to mother and child. Give us a better understanding of the perils faced on the journey from zygote to embryo to fetus to eliminate the stat that 1 in 4 women will suffer a miscarriage in their childbearing years, or better yet, just stop killing kids in their mother's wombs. I can only assume that your imagination must have been exhausted after creating sunrises, sunsets, the ocean, its floor, and the majestic mountains that are beautiful works of art, after all. But your imagination must have been expended after creating the creatures of the deep, birds to decorate the skies, and animals to populate the earth. They are all inspiring in every iteration, so I can only assume that your imagination must have been taxed when it came to creating my kind. I mean, if we are, as your adherents would have me believe, your chosen species, there would be no need for me to plead for upgrades to the human form. So never mind. Scientifically minded men have stepped in to fill the void in our development left after over 2 million years of undirected evolution. People like Orville and Wilbur Wright, who gave us the gift of flight, or William Spicer, one of the pioneers of modern night vision goggles, or Frenchman Sieur Firminet, I might have butchered that, who came up with the first self-contained underwater breathing apparatus, better known by its acronym SCUBA, or Carl Gerasi, inventor of the modern oral contraceptive, aka the pill. And I know that some of your followers attempt to tell me that these men and their work are expressions of your will, but that still leaves the stat that you kill 1 in 4 children before they ever have the opportunity to breathe. And that's just in America with all our modern medical technology. So please, before your adherents speak about your greatness and unending love and compassion, have them explain away that fact. Until then, I will place my trust in the science that works. So I don't know if you guys know this, but Christianity is kind of prevalent in the African-American community, in the black community. And like I said, the open mic I performed at was populated by mostly black people, and most of those black people tended to be Christian. So I kind of wrote this poem as a rejoinder. It's called Say Anything. It distresses me how tenaciously my people hold on to Jesus, when God, Jesus, Jehovah, and Allah never fell from the lips of our ancestors as they were trapped in the bellies of boats, bringing them across the Atlantic, raping them of the only home they ever knew. These same gods enabled our enslavers to see us as nothing but chattel, below human beings, because their holy books, falsely attributed to the hands of God, were written by feeble-minded men who never walked more than 100 miles outside of their villages. Men who had no knowledge of distant lands containing people who did not resemble them. Victims of an arrogance that allowed men to lack even the will to hate those they enslaved, because hate is something reserved for equals, and their gods gave them domain over land and animals. So if my ancestors were only ever seen as animals in these men's eyes, why would they waste energy hating me and my kind? My ancestors prayed to different gods who, as far as I can tell, never lifted a finger to help them, who, as far as they could tell, never lifted a finger to help them. So it only figures that they would adopt the God of their enslavers, who, as far as I can tell, has never lifted a finger to help us, has never attempted to dissuade his followers from practicing in human trafficking. In fact, a careful reading of Leviticus chapter 25, verse 44 to 46 instructs the chosen ones to buy bondsmen and bondsmaids from neighboring nations, tells them that the offspring of these purchased people should be passed down in perpetuity, but that they should not rule over their brethren in a similar manner. So this poem is entitled Gorillas in the Mist. The poem says it's set up. A poetic friend of mine admonished theists to let those who believe we came from monkeys act accordingly. But facts are a faith-free institution and a poor competitor in the marketplace of ideas, so I'm going to act as facts advertiser. We share about 98.5% of our genetic makeup with chimps. And while we have not yet isolated the essentials of humanity, we can see some things throughout history that separates us from the other great apes. Contained in that 1.5% are major accomplishments like controlling fire, which gave us the ability to cook our kills, the ability to kill off bacteria that may have killed us in the past, and cooking aids in digestion by breaking down vital nutrients, which allowed evolution to shorten our intestines. It has even been postulated by scientists that cooking our food may have enabled our brains to attain their current capabilities. The will exists in that 1.5%, which gave us the ability to make simple machines, which enabled us to ease our load, to share the work among a community of individuals. Farming exists in that 1.5%, allowing a select few people to feed multitudes, allowing the multitudes to focus their energy on other pursuits, also located in that top 1.5%. Pursuits like reason, science, art, math, poetry, mechanical ability, reading, writing, contemplating death, walking upright, ascribing a meaning to life beyond survival and procreation. That 1.5% is an immense difference when looked at from the bias of human exceptionalism. But also located in that 1.5% is the irrational hate of the other, is the Holocaust and the slave trade, racism, sexism, ageism, homophobia. Our weapons of mass destruction is the ability to alter the earth for good or ill, is religion, is the ability to forego empathy based on the words of authority, is shame for acts that in any other species are only seen as natural, like sex and nudity. Located in the lower 98.5% that we share with the other hominids is empathy and compassion. Monkeys in experimental conditions have chosen to starve when they think that the option to give themselves food will also harm one of their own. Somewhere buried in the base of the 88% of the genes we share with rodents is laughter. Scientists have made lab rats laugh when tickled. In our tribal communities, a trait shared with the wolves who share 75% of our genes, we use to hunt in packs. Lacking any discernible offensive or defensive advantage, our willingness to work together allowed us to bring down prey much larger and faster than ourselves. Our bird brain genes, 60% shared between the two, contain the ability to problem solve, fashion tools, and propagate languages. Located in the lower 40% is yellow, because that is the percentage of genes we share with bananas. Yes, Ray Comfort, bananas. So you can believe in an ancient myth if you wish, that we and every other creature on earth were created fully formed by an intangible creator, or follow where the evidence leads. As for me, I'll take Terry Pratchett's point of view. I'd rather be a rising ape than a fallen angel. So do we have any Reason Rally attendees here from 2012? Cool. So you're going to recognize this poem. It's called Flight of the Navigator. I performed at the Reason Rally. Come next year. It's going to be a blast. She asked of me how I could be GWOD if I did not believe in he that is supposed to be my Lord and Savior. Asked what motivating force kept me from doing my darkest desires if I did not fear the retribution of an omniscient being. But I ask of you, my friends, how many atheists have been rocked by scandal where they were the vandal upon the body of an underage child, only to have their organization deny, hide, and defend these men from the retribution due them by the laws of the land? How many skeptics have kicked, how many secularists have practiced hypocrisy, preaching the nobility of poverty from the pulpit while living richly off the donated dollars of their impoverished flock? How many skeptics have kicked out their Christian children for daring to question tradition? I mean, what war was ever waged in the name of humanism? How dare religion attempt to hold morality under lock and key when their leaders can't agree on what is moral? If you want to discuss religion and morality, then let's talk about the Crusades, the Inquisition, the implicit agreement to the slave trade. Let's discuss how missionaries have been footpaths for colonialism. Let's discuss Pope Pius XII's silent consent to the Nazi movement. Let's discuss religious men making martyrs of innocents using planes as manned missiles against the land of infidels. Let's discuss Pope Benedict XVI's proclamation that condoms promote the spread of AIDS in infected Africa. Let's discuss the papacy okaying the excommunication of Brazilian mother and doctors for performing an abortion on raped 9-year-old impregnated with twins by her stepfather, while religiously stepdaddy walks away scot-free. Let's discuss religious anti-abortion advocates advocating for the assassination of doctors for performing an abortion, for performing a legal and at times unnecessary operation. Let's discuss religious anti-abortion advocates advocating for the elimination of social programs in a world where poverty and access to resources kills more kids than abortion ever could. Let's discuss religious anti-abortion advocates advocating for war and the death penalty. Let's discuss Pope Francis saying that being gay is okay, as long as you don't have gay sex, as long as you don't get gay married. Because the Catholic Church believes in traditional marriage. You know, traditional marriage like one husband, one wife. Like one husband, one wife, many concubines. Like one husband, many wives. Like one husband paying the bride price of 300 foreskins of his fallen enemies to his bride's father. Like The woman is the property of her father until she's married, then she becomes the property of the husband. Like the woman has no right to property, like the woman has no right to vote. Like, I can't remember. Tradition. Let's discuss how religion keeps the masses on their asses, happy with the here and now, believing that their kingdom will come in the hereafter. Let's discuss how religion has made second-class citizens of women. Everything that goes wrong in the Bible can trace back to a woman from the Garden of Eden on down. So question my morality because I don't believe, but I think you should defend yours based on those who follow based on the history of those who follow he that you most wish to be like. But you will demand of me to take the followers of faith on a case-by-case basis while practicing your prejudice towards atheists based on some preconceived notions of those who don't believe. Get to know us personally. Ask of me how I could be G-double-O-D if I do not believe in he that is supposed to be my Lord and Savior. Ask what motivating force keeps me from doing my darkest desires if I do not fear the retribution of an omniscient being, and I will tell you what I do believe. I believe that all of humanity is connected, that what happens half a world away may one day affect my new nieces. I believe that children should be taught to think critically about what they hear, what they see, and what they believe. I believe that religion is just a division perpetuated by the powers that be to keep you and me from focusing on what really matters most, just like race, just like gender, and just like sexuality. I believe that morality doesn't come from God or Allah or Yahweh or Muhammad or Jesus or Buddha or spirituality, but is instead a basic human element that allows us the further existence of our species. I believe that all the pain and suffering I've seen in my family, and indeed all of the world, is not caused by an omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent being that is just testing us or can't be bothered to help, but is something that we can all work to eliminate. I believe that no God means the possibility of less suffering in the future. I believe that if all of humanity were like me, we would see that every species is connected and be better stewards of this one earth. So when they dare question your morality because you don't believe, make sure they're prepared to defend theirs because they do. Sorry. So, sometimes, as a skeptic, as a science advocate, I get accused of taking out the awe of poetry, which I think is false. I find immense awe in science. So this next poem is a poem I wrote for my parents. It's a way to demonstrate that you can use metaphor and simile as long as it's consistent within the poem. My name is Victor. It means winner. But for the purpose of this poem, we will define it as first. My brother's middle name, Denari, means shining star. These two names combined define us as our parents' first shining stars. The suns, the center of their solar system, the gravity well around which they orbit, and it is evident in our demeanor, evident in the way that we carry ourselves, the accomplishments achieved since birth. My brother has a bachelor's degree from Morehouse College and a master's from Cal State Hayward. I got my bachelor's at Cal State Hayward and was considering a master's at Cal State East Bay, and those are just the tips of two very deep icebergs. But as proud as I am of my own my brother and all that he's accomplished, and as proud as I am of my own accomplishments, this is not a poem about Kirby Denari. This is a poem about Gwendolyn Elizabeth. This is a poem about Victor Sr., two beautiful beings joined to the offspring, determined to bring individuals into this world. So they backed my brother in his pursuit of business, and they applaud my artistry, and we, as students of their tutelage, encourage each other in every endeavor. These two people, separated in love as long as I can remember, have been co-conspirators in child rearing as long as I can remember. We were latchkey kids, never left alone, because as soon as we got home, Mom was knocking on the front door to make sure we did our homework, to make sure we stayed out of trouble, to take us to basketball, football, baseball, cross country, and track practice. And Dad did double duty, not only bringing home the bacon, but frying it up too. Boiling, broiling, baking, sometimes making meals with no real name. We learned to be wary of the experiments. Our parents put aside personal pleasures to ensure for us a better future, They rented apartments in nice neighborhoods so we could play past streetlights illuminations, moved in with parents to enable graduation, bought houses and moved close to schools, let us live together to form friendships, and split us up so we could have our own rooms. Our parents never instilled in us the value of a dollar. They instead instilled in us the value of education. They instead instilled in us the value of family. Our parents paved the way to make us the men we are today, and ordinarily I do not speak on my brother's behalf, but in this case, he's never minded. Mom, you instilled in us a love of learning and showed us how to correctly cross the college stage. Dad, you built in us the foundation to do better and encourage us every day to follow our heart. Thank you both for giving us galaxies within which to grow, and know that now that Bryce, Elizabeth, and Riley Noel exist, they will be given the same room to roam. Constellations to cultivate careers filled with passion, promise, and happiness, just like us, your first sons, your gravity well, your gravity well around which you orbit, your first shining stars. We are Kirby Denari and Victor Jr. We love you. So this next poem is to my two nieces that you heard mentioned in that poem. It's called Graduation Gift. It's one of my favorites. To my two new nieces, Bryce, Elizabeth, and Riley Noel, on the separate occasion of your graduation from high school, some words of advice as you prepare to leave us to make your way in this world. This society will attempt to compartmentalize you, place you in boxes so they no longer have to consider you, be it the female box, the male box, the artist box, or the office worker box. Refuse to be boxed, because normalcy is the pursuit of the unimaginative. Be imaginary, the person the little kid in you always imagined you would be. Learn to love life like you used to. Refuse to reminisce about the joys of childhood, and instead work to haul them into your everyday. Get lost in daydreams made reality, play dates played out as your daily routine. Make friends with someone because they sat next to you. Be the kid you miss. Craft the childhood you never had a chance to experience. Be precedential. Set precedents. Like, I never heard of a brother baking cheesecakes, DJing, racing cars, and writing poetry. Never met a man that managed to raise 3 kids, one by coastal on a poet's salary. Never heard of a radio personality who persistently exceeds expectations in pursuit of his dreams. Be inspirational. Shun those who attempt to claim pride in your work without doing work of their own. Don't apologize. Be intentional in words and deeds, and you will never have to offer another phrase of remorse for the ill-conceived perceptions of others. If they don't understand you, keep talking. There are those who will. It is for them that you are sharing your voice. Never let show some respect be synonymous with shut up. Have enough respect for the strength and courage of others to tell them the uncomfortable truth, especially when they're asking for it. Life is too short to live with regret. Tomorrow may always be a day away, but death is always lurking. And society will attempt to convince you that your bucket list can be put on hold when in reality your bucket is always with you, waiting to be kicked. It is the uncomfortable truth of our fragile existence, and one that we must all come to grips with, old and young alike. This is the only life you are guaranteed. Live like it. You are the consequence of chances of unimaginable proportions. Take some. Every person you meet is living an equally improbable life and should be treasured with each encounter. Act like it. Awake with the realization that today has the possibility to be the best day of your life, and love like it. End each day by saying there is nothing you would do differently, even when you can't recall exactly what you've done, and sleep like it. Remember that she who has the most toys still dies. Live life without clutter. Live life without fear. Live life without surplus so that when death does finally find you, it will not find you wanting. Find eternity in memory. Turn legendary possibility into manifested reality, and never doubt that my love for you comes without condition. Thank you. I think I got like 2 more. Oh, hey, that's my time. There's time there. All right. With that time. Okay. Oh dear. So last year I had the pleasure of hosting a PAStAHCon and introducing Neil deGrasse Tyson. And this is the poem that I got to introduce him to. It's called Weird Science. I am an amazing amalgamation of milliseconds, a compilation of coincidences, a collection of infinitely small spans of time that separates me from the possibility of my bloodline. I've managed to outswim 500 million of my brothers and sisters to be here today, continuing a chain of happenstance that began moments after the Big Bang brought the universe into being. Matter and energy could not be created or destroyed, so the same molecules that make up me in this instance have been in existence for over 13 billion years. We are heavenly, but there is no godly hand evident in the creation of man. I can instead trace evidence of my being into the cosmos. The same elements that make me unique have been sourced to create the universe. I mean, forget Jesus. Stars died. Galaxies gave their lives to form my fingertips. How could I not find wonder in waking up? Be more amazed at each day that I open my eyes. Each day I'm granted more time on this little blue marble floating through the vast emptiness of space. I am in awe of life. To quote Carl Sagan, I find it elevating and exhilarating to discover that we live in a universe which permits the evolution of molecular machines as intricate and subtle as we. I'm left breathless by the understanding that my existence is an example of the improbable versus the impossible, and despite what some might think, this gives my life more meaning, makes each day more precious, lends weight and reality to the precious of each person that I allow into my life, because I see that they are an amazing amalgamation of milliseconds, a compilation of coincidences, a collection of infinitely small spans of time that separates them from the possibility of their bloodline. So I offer assistance where I'm able, compassion when I can, and a hug when life's weight proves too great for them to stand, because these memories will be the markers of my legacy, allowing me to exist for eternity, or at least for a few years past my mental exit from this planet, a few years past my physical exit from this planet, a few years past that moment in time when my atoms are reconnected with the cosmos. I live my life relaxed and happy, because I know that I could be gone tomorrow. And like Stephen Hawking said, when your expectations have been reduced to zero, then you truly appreciate everything you have. Thank you. I have like 2 minutes left, but that's not enough time to do any poems. So are there any questions? I will be at the next Reason Rally, yes. Definitely come. Anything else? Anything else? So yeah, well, I'll tell you that in the process of like sharing my poetry at the open mic, I'd say probably at least once or twice a week, maybe once or twice a month, I'd have someone come up say, thank you for like speaking out as an atheist. It's refreshing. I thought I was alone. I didn't know, and from all ages, all ethnicities. So if you have an opportunity to speak out, if you have the comfort to speak out, I would definitely advise you to do so. Thank you.
Do the cheesecake ship nationwide?
Unfortunately, cheesecakes do not yet ship nationwide.
Not yet.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to ask you that to be a downer. Oh man.
But I'm trying to make an effort to bring them to conferences that I go to.
People ship nationwide, so
People
you can
ship
go
nationwide.
to San Francisco.
You can totally come to San Francisco and buy cheesecake, and I'll be happy to give you cheesecake and hugs. And yeah, thank you for coming.
Victor Harris.